Getting our friends together isn't as easy as it used to be. We get it. Life comes at you fast. But trust us, your pals are desperate for a good hang. And when they hear you stock the party with drinks from Drizzly, they'll be banging down your door. Let Drizzly, the go-to app for drink delivery, take care of the supplies. All you need is an excuse. It doesn't even have to be a good one. It's your dog's birthday. The loquats are finally ripe. Whatever. With Drizzly, you can compare prices on a massive selection of beer, wine, and spirits and get them delivered straight to your door, which means you can entice the crew to leave their houses without ever leaving yours. Whatever the occasion, download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com. Today. Must be 21 plus. Not available in all locations. Man, I wish they had Drizzly when I used to play D&D and Riffs. Maybe it's time for me to start again. Thanks, Drizzly.
The podcast playground.
Hooray! Hey, it's my song. Let's sing it. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Come on, it's gonna be fucking awesome. You know the words. It's gonna be fucking awesome. That's it, sing. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Yeah!
Yo, it's time for another death-defying episode of the Coolest Geek Alive. And I have been geek raging all week. For those of you who are big fans of the show, you know I'm a huge fan of Disney animation. And if I haven't gushed about how much I love and respect the late Walt Disney in particular, well, today is the day. Walt Disney is one of my heroes, and absolutely no one has been properly defending him and the absolute masterpiece that is the original Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Granted, I've heard some people commenting that Disney themselves aren't defending him, but even them, they're not going into any great lengths about all of the respect that this man deserves. As someone who has looked up to Walt his entire life, someone who loves Disney animation and has studied the man and the company since I was a little kid, and someone who has worked for Disney personally as a professional writer adapting a Muppet version of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs specifically, I think perhaps I may be the best man for the job to properly adjust everyone's current day thoughts on one of the most groundbreaking films of all time, period, full stop. The Disney company has been shying away from honoring Walt as the company's figurehead for many years now, and it's frankly disgusting to fans like myself who are here because of the original OG Imagineer. He brought us here with his brilliance. I'm not entertaining any of this bullshit about Disney being some sort of retroactive racist, sexist, or whatever. Walt Disney was a man of his time, and he did more to change the world for the better in his short life than almost anyone who has lived in recent times. Today, I did the thing that so far I've only done for the very first episode of this show. I wrote a speech that I'm already reading to you. But without further ado, I'm really going to get into it right now. Now, a few days ago, I took the time to sit and rewatch the one that started it all. At the time, before its release, it was dubbed Disney's Folly by the trade magazines. The film that first introduced a mass audience to fantasy. Because of this film's release in 1937, moviegoers were treated to The Wizard of Oz just 2 years later in 1939. The musical Oklahoma is considered the first musical where the featured songs were story-driven. But the truth is, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs beat them to that punch by 5 years. Literally, everything about this film is groundbreaking. I took 2 screen grabs while watching the film. The first, at the very beginning. In the midst of the opening credits, it says, quote, "My sincere appreciation to the members of my staff whose loyalty and creative endeavor made possible this production. Signed, Walt Disney." Reading that made me cry, because these past bunch of years of listening to the entertainment media speak about this man made me forget just how beautiful of a person he really was. I have a shirt with Walt and Mickey that says, "And to think, it all started with a mouse." It always makes me smile and chuckle. The Walt Disney Empire was all started with a mouse. This huge thing birthed from this little thing. But really, it was all started from the huge imagination of one Walt Disney. Was he a perfect man? No. He was sadly just a man, a human, as we all are. But it takes big dreams to make big things, and no one has encouraged the world to dream a little bigger like Walt Disney did. One of my other great creative heroes is Steve Jobs. He comes to mind as someone on Walt Disney's level. But my greatest hero, Jim Henson, he knew that he personally wasn't on Walt's level. And trust me, Jim is a next level cat. But part of why he sold the Muppets to the Walt Disney Company to begin with was because he thought Disney could do more with his creations than he could. Granted, Walt Disney himself was dead by then, but the company and the legacy that he created was beyond the scope of even Jim Henson's dreams at the time. Walt Disney is next level. He's a brilliant creative person in his own right, but he's also an incredible businessman who brought out the greatness in so many of the people he worked with. It started with animated shorts, where he made a splash by appreciating the powerful combination of music and pictures, and it only continued to ratchet up and up from there. One bit of brilliance after the next, Mickey Mouse is milestone number 1, but Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is arguably even more important. Now, as a musician and a comic book writer, let me tell you, Walt Disney had the best taste. And he brought that great taste to bear when he decided to make the first of its kind full-length animated feature. Everyone thought he was nuts, but he knew how powerful it could be. He recognized that the medium of animation could tell more than just silly stories, that animation was capable of bringing to life tales that could never be seen otherwise. And considering just how few Walt Disneys dot the landscape, I really wonder how long it would have taken for others to realize this dream without the genius of Walt and the watershed moment that is and remains Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. An idea that had clearly been percolating in his mind since he was a boy when he caught a screening of a black and white silent version of the Snow White tale with his fellow newsboys in Kansas City. If you go back and watch some of that original, Walt's version is a clear and loving adaptation of that material. The style of the trees and buildings and landscapes of the film are a loving adaptation of European children's books that had been adapting these fairy tales for ages. He literally had some of these Swiss-born journeyman illustrators like Albert Herder and watercolor artist Gustafsson Tengren working at Disney, helping to make this as authentic an adaptation as it possibly could be. Everything about this film is adaptation done right. You know, that's what I like to talk about on this show. And I see so many people speaking about how Walt reimagined the story to make his film, and that other reimaginings of these ideas for modern day sensibilities are the same thing. I'm here to tell you, no, they are not. Walt didn't really reimagine anything. He added to the thing. He adapted it to the animation medium, which meant adding gags and adding songs. But his version is a similar telling to the versions of the story that were being told by that time in our history. He lovingly recreated the version that he had grown up with in a new medium. He did not fundamentally reinvent or subvert it. He went out of his way to create something that would be satisfying to the audience, and specifically something that would appeal to his own inner child who grew up loving the story so deeply. The second screenshot that I took was at the very end of the film, the card that comes up when the story is all over. Quote, "And they lived happily ever after." If you haven't heard yet, there's a live-action remake of Snow White in the works, and if leaked photos and the words of their lead actress are to be believed, this will most certainly be one of those reimagining situations, and a clear case of adaptation done incorrectly and without love or respect for the source material. Here's a direct quote from this young idiot actress who I will not name. Quote, "It's really not about the love story at all, which is really, really wonderful. And whether or not she finds love along the way is anybody's guess until 2024. all of Andrew's scenes could get cut, who knows? Andrew is the actor playing Prince Charming, who she says may be cut from the film entirely. So, who exactly is the they in They Lived Happily Ever After? When they greenlit a live-action version of the film, which represents one of the great simple love stories for all of the young at heart, and simultaneously represents one of the greatest American success stories of all time, did they do so thinking that they were given the task of fixing it for the next generation? Who told them there was anything wrong with it? And if they thought that, why greenlight a remake in the first place? When audiences got loud about certain consistent patterns in the way women were being depicted across American entertainment, we asked for more representation of alternative ways things could be. We did not ask that we go back and rewrite history. Too many Snow Whites in popular culture is a problem. But Snow White is not the problem. Painting a very specific and seemingly exclusionary picture of the types of women and relationships in this world can be damaging. But the existence of Snow White is not. There's a reason this is one of the highest grossing films of all time, taking inflation into consideration, and one of the most beloved of Disney's animated classics. And it's not because we were all aching to see it changed. Don't get it twisted. A live-action remake of a comic book or animated property is a promise of a visually realistic interpretation of something we have been looking at for years, imagining the real version in our minds. It's your job to bring it to life. Make it live and breathe, not change it. The less it looks like the thing we already love, the more aggravated we will be at the promise you have broken. The more it does look the same, the happier we will be. Beyond that, we are looking to see the tentpole moments of the story that we love brought to life. The magic mirror, the castles, the dresses, the dwarves. We want to see what they'd look like if they were real. There's a whole genre of Instagram posts made even more popular from the use of AI, where people share realistic images of their favorite cartoon characters. The ones that hit the nail on the head are shared the most. Occasionally, really strong artistic interpretations are also shared, but what always gets the most love on social media are the right-on-the-money depictions. The ones that make you say, "Whoa, nailed it!" There's a guy that has become a Peter Griffin meme because he looks so much like a real-life version of the Family Guy star. Cosplaying exists because of our desire to see these things brought to life the right way. I can remember a cosplayer cornering me at a bar after a convention and basically begging me to wear his Gambit costume because he knew I would look super authentic in it. And that's the whole point. The authentication of the thing we love. I'm Wishing is a song about Snow White imagining the great love of her life coming to sweep her off her feet. One song is Prince Charming telling her that he feels it too. Someday My Prince Will Come is perhaps the quintessential love song felt by all. You don't have to be a girl to daydream and sing, "Someday My Prince Will Come." I've daydreamed singing "Someday My Princess Will Come" in middle school. This is the height of romanticism. No extraneous details, just pure love. Someday, this perfect thing I can see in my mind will come straight to me. Snow White is a story of love and innocence, of idealism, of a time in a person's life when they haven't been broken so much that they've stopped daydreaming about how wonderful their life will be in the future. It's optimism, purely distilled. In fact, in this film, the only antidote to the poison apple that the evil queen uses to poison Snow White is true love's first kiss, which is how the movie ends. So why in a million years would you make this film if the parts that echo the loudest in our memories you think are no longer in style? I've often spoke that the WB's biggest problem with their DC universe is not getting Superman right in Man of Steel. Every single superhero and villain, for that matter, has been created in the face of Superman. Every character has had to be published alongside Superman on the newsstand, and therefore had to be made uniquely different from him because he came first and is the measuring stick for all of the other characters. The same is true of Snow White. She's the one that started it all, the first Disney princess. No one is bitching about her or Sleeping Beauty particularly. They were bitching about the depictions of the princesses in general. But that's why we have ass-kicking Princess Mulan. Why we got working-class Princess Tiana in The Princess and the Frog. New and interesting characters have been coming along all the time to create new space for better representation of the very unique world around us. But we never asked that you change the existing ones. I've been writing fiction a long time now, and I've probably said before that it has always been like it is now, just in the opposite direction. We used to have editors, producers, or whoever standing in the way of unique depictions of women and minorities, or vetoing women and minorities in leading roles, told, quote, that won't sell, and forced to change our work accordingly. Now, people are given arbitrary rules for how all women need to be portrayed, or a bunch of checkboxes for a given project. The old way was noticed over time because there were things that were rarely included in fiction for a long time, and outsiders looking in eventually noticed the consistent pattern of don't this. But more noticeable than that has been what's happened to fiction in recent years, where the mandate is must this, and this, and this. It looks like aliens terraforming a planet. You know, that's where they replace areas of our planet to make it more hospitable to their alien race. And before you know it, our place looks like an alien planet, completely unrecognizable from where it started. Yesterday's bosses were making the work worse. Today's bosses are doing no better, possibly much worse. Here's an analogy for you. Imagine a good idea like an award you're putting on display in your home. You've got the perfect corner of the house to show it off in, and now you have to decorate that corner to highlight its existence. So, should we put a bunch of big plants around it that will obscure the award? Do we put far more beautiful and interesting things around it to pull the eye away from the award? Or should everything we do in this corner be about pointing to the glow and accentuating the shine of the glorious award on display? I'll give you a hint. It's all about the award. The core idea of a thing is the award. In this case, the core ideas are who is fairest of them all, and they lived happily ever after. That's your movie. Everything must be in support of those ideas, or it's just a muddled and unmemorable mess. This version, according to this actress, is, quote, really not about the love story at all. Instead, it's about Snow White's inner journey to find her true self. No, it's not. That's what Moana is about. That's what Frozen is about. That's what Brave is about, and Tangled, and again, Mulan. Snow White, in fact, isn't about that. But clearly, we have plenty of stories, and in fact, Disney princesses already, who are filling that space. This is a story about true love and bitter envy. Who wants to see a full-length cartoon, was what Walt Disney was told back in the day. To this day, many people will tell you they don't like cartoons or they won't watch a movie if it's a cartoon. This film was a huge risk at the time. People thought that the bright colors would hurt everyone's eyes and that people would get up and walk out. This was Walt putting not just his money, but everything he had on the magic of animation. This could have tanked the entire studio, but it didn't. People left the theater in tears at the premiere. And today's world might not look the same without him taking this gamble. There's no Pixar, there's no DreamWorks, there's no Illumination without Snow White. MGM greenlit Wizard of Oz because of it. Think of all the films that film inspired. It was given a special Oscar at the time, featuring 7 little Oscars trailing behind the full-sized one. This film ended up costing almost double what Walt expected. $250K was the proposed budget, and quickly that rose to $400K, which is a little under $8 million in today's dollars. But he knew it was never a gamble. It was about making something great out of a fairy tale he knew everyone already loved. including himself. And he was right. He nailed it. This film is timeless and universally beloved. Perhaps it seems very evidently, end quote, a product of the 1930s to a layperson or a young person. But this film was ahead of its time then and remains timeless today. You would think that the Disney company would know this and send their remake's lead actress out with the correct talking points about the greatness of the original and the excellence of Walt Disney's legacy. But instead, we get quotes like this about the original. Quote, "There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. It's weird." No, that's not true. In the film, Prince Charming hears Snow White singing her wishing song, and he joins her to sing a bar of his own. He's attracted by her beautiful voice. He too has been wishing, and even he has his own one song all queued up to tell her he's right there with her. He's wishing too. What stalking is going on here? He basically says, "Hey, I heard you singing, ma'am. What a beautiful voice you have. I heard you before I saw you, and I knew this voice belonged to the girl for me." It's so damn romantic, it makes you want to puke a little. Or how about this doozy of a quote? How the film is extremely dated regarding ideas of women being in the roles of power and what a woman is fit for in the world. The most powerful person in the original is a queen. Just shut up if you don't know what you're talking about, please. Holy shit. Like, seriously. In this new version, they say the film's most famous phrase, "the fairest of them all," is going to refer to who is the most just, as opposed to the most beautiful, which makes absolutely no sense at all. The evil queen is going to win at being more just by using black magic to poison an innocent and just young girl. Won't that put her to the bottom of the list right away? Wouldn't even learning the dark arts have pushed the queen down a few pegs on the list already? Or I'm sorry, I'm presuming that you're going to be using the poisoned apple. I wouldn't imagine that you're going to pull the poisoned apple out of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you are pulling the poisoned apple out of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And this movie is just Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs in name only. Who is coming up with these harebrained ideas? And what stupid idiot hired them in the first place? That's not all. The dwarfs are not dwarfs, they're just people. A diversity of people, to be sure, but again, they're not even short people, and they don't dress anything like the dwarfs do. You can't make your grumpy look anything like the grumpy on my grumpy t-shirt. I love this shirt. Clearly, I'm one of the customers you were planning on for this movie. But the thing you're making doesn't look anything like the thing I like. I'd love to see my favorite dwarves riding deers through the forest to try and save Snow White in live action. But of course, the people that you cast would crush an average-sized deer. So I guess there's another little bit of this live-action remake that won't be bringing the thing from the movie that I remember to life. Well, if this film has taught generations of people all over the world anything, it's taught us that love conquers all. And I still believe that someday my prince will come, or maybe a princess, someone who will return the Walt Disney Company to its former glory. But in the meantime, let us all do exactly what Snow White does in the original animated classic. Let us make a wish for that person to come on the poisoned wishing apple that this cursed production has become. Hey, it worked for Snow White. Maybe there's enough magic left inside that ruby red apple for us too. Well, that's it, everybody. I'm honestly exhausted from writing that speech. I wrote the whole thing this morning on a tear right before I recorded this for you. I hope that it speaks to your heart because it came straight from mine. As a lover and admirer of one of the most important creative people who has ever lived on planet Earth, the great innovator, Walt Disney. Your homework for this week is to go watch Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs so that you too can go out into the world and joyously defend its honor. I know that I will be every chance I get. This week, instead of a fan letter, I'm going to read the open letter that I wrote to the comic book industry in support of last week's Comicsgate episode on the political divide that's been going on in geek culture for the past bunch of years. And so it goes, posted on the Podcast Playground's website. on August 16th, episode number 23, the Coolest Geek Alive on Comicsgate. Quote, I tell my kids all the time, I'm like, yo, sweetie, if he does something messed up to you, come to me immediately, and he is in so much trouble. But if you beat him up a little before you come to me, I am so not sympathetic to you. So I'm not sympathetic to any of you because you're all just beating each other up. That's a quote from last episode. This is a conversation that I have dreaded having for many years now. A conversation about the demonization of the fandom and the ugly war between fans and creators that has followed. I'm not interested in taking sides, but I am a creator, and I'm here to tell you it is time for us to be the bigger people and put down all armaments. This conversation deserves at least the length of my most recent podcast titled The Comicsgate episode, What Happened to the Fandom? That's last week's episode. To fully understand the problems. But the solution is in the hands of the creative people who perpetually punch down at the fandom for almost a decade now, shaming all of geek culture for their tastes and predispositions. I am a 20-year-plus veteran of the comic book industry who has worked professionally for every major company, including Marvel, DC, Image, Disney, Pixar, The Muppets, and more, but have always been a fan first. I lived in Hollywood for over a decade, worked professionally as a voiceover actor, TV host, and have been observing both sides my entire life. From this vantage point, I can tell you that behind the scenes, the producers of geeky content simply want the fandom to either stop caring so much or just have them disappear completely. It's very frustrating to producers when the audience knows more than you do about the intellectual properties they have been hired to shepherd. But instead of reading the respective source material and playing catch-up on their IP to better satisfy the fans, they have opted to slander these fans at every single turn. Racists, sexists, phobes, fascists, it's gotten truly ugly. Smeared in this way by the Hollywood PR machine, the creative people have felt justified in handling all of these dissenting-ist voices with a big stick, often flying off the chain to crush these socially awkward geeks the very moment they say anything that can even be perceived as a slight against their work. It's very common to hear fans talk about how they got blocked by a creator on Twitter for tweeting something at them they thought was innocuous or even complimentary, but clearly was perceived as mean-spirited by the writers, artists, producers, and directors who run the industry and have been put in charge of all the things they love. Firstly, this is a general problem with social media, which equalizes all voices, and a general problem with regular media, which only promotes the most extreme opinions voiced. It's also a problem with telling jokes through text messages. How many times have you pissed off your parents or they you by making a joke that was read very seriously? The real problem is that social media has given a political platform to all of the creative people, and those who use it for that purpose color the way every view they share is read by others. Are you fiercely pro or anti anything? All your tweets are now read through that lens. Worse, all of your artistic offerings are now filtered through the same lens, with people now actively searching through your work, looking to prove just how partisan all your creations really are. The modern entertainment landscape has become a classic tale of us versus them, with the rest of us stuck in the middle of the disgusting discourse. It is motivated not only by modern-day politics and political correctness that seems to have seeped into every aspect of our waking lives, but also by the film industry who wishes to guard itself from criticism the same way modern-day politicians do. If you don't like my policy and it has anything to do with women, guess what? You're a sexist now. Anything to connect it to race, you're a racist. I think you probably get the point. If you have a complaint, the problem is not the material they're making, but a problem with you personally. You have the problem, never them. This choice by the powerful elites of entertainment with the support of those who work for them has literally created Comicsgate and given more power to the supposed alt-right than anything the Donald Trumps of the world have ever done. Because it's not this loose collection of alt-right leaders enlarging the group. It's how we are treating their supporters. We have pushed everyone into a corner where their only choice is conformity or pushback. As a punk rocker and centrist myself, I understand why many have chosen to fight. Conformity is lame. Hollywood has returned to its McCarthy-era practices of witch hunts and cancel culture, something that we were all very sure was terrible just a few years ago, but now embrace in lockstep. If you think this is an unfair characterization, it's only because you have been a part of this mob or in support of it and certainly weren't looking at it from this vantage point at the time. But this is the truth from the middle. To put it quite simply, the big ones are bullying the little ones. And if you can't see it that way, you need to look at it from the perspective of the fans for a little bit. We are the lucky people who get paid to create things. They are the everyday working people who just want to enjoy their entertainment without a side of guilt and shame thrown in. Does that truly make them so awful? The time has come for all of the professional creative people in the geek culture community to apologize for their fantagonism and pave a new road forward to love, harmony, and better communication. This does not mean that the fans will stop being human beings. This does not mean everyone will only tweet or comment pleasant things in your direction. It just means that creative people will recognize the power in their hands and stop using it for ill. That's it. Just a return to the way it was before social media destroyed the peace. Block people if you have to, ignore criticism if you must, but creative people like me, we're big enough to stop lashing out and stop giving props to our fellow creators for powerfully beating down upon the powerless. I speak about that at great length and with great love and respect for everyone involved on the previous week's episode of the Coolest Geek Alive podcast. I have great friends on both sides of this issue, creative people who I love still, even if I don't always agree with what they say or do. Fortunately, I believe that as loud as they are, the left and right of comic books are comparatively fringe voices at the edges of a huge, passionate middle where people like me live, breathe, and passionately love. It is also my belief that in general, people who choose comic books and other geek culture pursuits are some of the kindest and most intelligent people on planet Earth, and more than smart enough to be reasoned with. Let me see if I am correct. And there's a link there, obviously, to last week's episode. Well, my audience, well, you coolest geeks alive out there, I am correct. No one has come at me about this article. Everyone is in support of it. Everyone agrees. The time has come for cooler heads to prevail. If you have not taken the time to listen to the episode that I made last week, the Comicsgate episode, it is not so controversial. It's pretty simple, man. We, the worshipers of sci-fi, fantasy, and superheroes, we can do better than this. We as a community, we deserve better than this. And I expect better from us. And I know I'm not the only one. We've been quiet and we've been letting you guys do your petty bickering thing. No more. It's time for the voiceless in the middle to stand up and politely ask for better. Please, the next time you see people online being unkind to each other in the geek community, just call for kindness. Make a joke. Say something to change the vibe, to change the energy in the room. You have the power to make a difference in this world by being a wonderful person, by being a hero in your own life. I'm sure on many levels, all of you guys are already getting up every day attempting to do this. But we need to do it even more. We need to make ourselves known on social media. We need to make the left and the right understand that they are the minority. They are a crazy minority. The people in the middle, we want peace. We want progress. And we're never going to get it as long as you assholes are fighting over the microphone. So please, put the mic down and politely walk away. And let's get somebody with a long beard that they've been growing through their years of wise experience to come along and pick it up. The Gandalfs of the world need to pick up that microphone and start speaking into it with love and respect for everyone on planet Earth. Please, let's do this. I believe that we can. Thank you for listening to my letter. Thank you for listening to last week's episode. Thank you for listening to this week's episode and all my episodes. We crossed 2 million downloads in our less than 4 months into this. Less than 4 months into this, Coolest Geek Alive has been downloaded over 2 million times. That blew my mind. I'm so honored. I feel so respected. Like, seriously, it makes me want to cry. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thanks so much for validating me and the things that I have to say, because I wouldn't have that many downloads if it wasn't all of you people who listened to an episode and then listened to a dozen more because you liked what I had to say. So many people have dug so deep into my catalog, and it's small but growing. And it means everything to me that my words are inspiring, polite, and passionate conversations all across the planet. I hope that I can continue to be a part of that conversation for many, many, many years to come. It's the conversation that I like to have the most. And if you're somebody who likes to have this conversation too, well, we're going to be good friends for a long time. Thank you for listening. If you have anything to say to me, you can drop me an email at jesseblaze@jessesnider.com. Follow me on Twitter at CoolestGeekJBS, and pledge to my comic book, King of Kings #1, on Kickstarter now. What a crazy world that I live in, that I even have to write the things down in that open letter that I wrote. Or the fact that I have to defend Walt Disney myself like this. It's just so heartbreaking. Jim Henson said it was his hope that the world would be a little bit better for him having been here. And I can't think of a dream more beautiful than that. That's my dream. And it's my dream because I heard him say it first. It's a dream that Walt Disney clearly has accomplished 1,000,000 times over in spectacular fashion. The world is better because he was here. And it's a dream that the professional comic book community should be aspiring to. Thank you, Walt, for all of your contributions to my own life. You have only made it that much better for everyone, as far as I can tell. Thank you again, and join me next Wednesday and Saturday morning for another passionate episode of The Coolest Geek Alive.
It's my favorite part! Isn't that heavy? I played that! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Coolest alive! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Stay with your tribe! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Revenge of the Geeks! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Week after weeks! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Laughing with you! It's gonna be fucking awesome! And crying sometimes too! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Spelling it out! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Making you shout!
You've been listening to Coolest Geek Alive with me, your host, Jesse Blaze Snider. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe for more excellent geek culture content. Thanks for listening.
You like that? It's a kazoo solo! I played that too! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Talking some shit! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Living the shit! My voice gonna be fucking awesome! Food in our mouth! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Get in the mouth! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Tell all your friends! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Call right on text! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Raising the bar! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Straight to the stars! It's gonna be fucking awesome! It's starting soon! Straight to the top! Passing the moon! It's gonna be fucking awesome! On with the show! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Ready, set, go! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Fucking awesome! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Just wait! You'll see! You'll all see!
The podcast playground.